This morning, Tucker Carlson slammed the Trump administration's crackdown on Minneapolis. Yeah, you heard that right.
All right, folks, buckle up. We've got a clip today that's going to make some heads explode and others nod so hard they might get whiplash. Tucker Carlson, the man who pulls no punches, is going after the Trump administration's tactics. And even better, calling out the so-called conservatives who conveniently forget their principles when it suits them. This isn't just about politics. It's about the very soul of what it means to be an American who believes in freedom. Let's dive in.
And he also called out the so-called conservatives who are conveniently forgetting about their support for the Second Amendment as they justify the execution of Alex Preti by Border Patrol agents simply because he was in legal possession of a concealed firearm that he never brandished, that he never threatened anyone with. Now, before I get to the details of what Carlson said in his newsletter about this shooting, Cenk, your 2 cents.
And there it is. The inconvenient truth that some on the right would rather sweep under the rug. Tucker Carlson is absolutely spot on here. How can you, with a straight face, claim to be a champion of the Second Amendment, a strong defender of individual liberty, and then turn around and justify the summary execution of an American citizen who was doing nothing more than exercising his constitutional right to carry a firearm? It's not just hypocrisy, it's a betrayal of the very principles that supposedly define conservatism. This isn't about whether you like Alex Preti or his politics. It's about the state's power, the government's outreach, and whether you can decide on a limb to take a life without due process simply because someone possesses a legal item. This is a slippery slope, folks. Today it's a concealed firearm. Tomorrow it's something else they deem suspicious. Where do we draw the line? If we allow government to execute civilians or citizens for merely possessing a legal item, we've already lost the battle for freedom. It's not conservative. It's all authoritarianism. Plain and simple. We need to hold all administrations accountable, not just the ones we don't like.
Yeah, I'm super encouraged that now agreement has gone to domestic issues, not just issues of war, Epstein and Israel, but now we're getting some agreements on lower drug prices, now even on the core issue of immigration. Not to say that we agree on immigration or we agree on ICE overall, but a police state executing American citizens in the streets is a thing that in the old days we would have just divided up into camps on, and that's still definitely happening to some degree. But here's Tucker Carlson, one of the leaders of the right wing, saying, no, I don't think this is a good idea. So a really interesting development.
So the headline for this newsletter is Alex Preti's killing was perfect for America's ruling class.
Yes.
And in the piece, Carlson repeatedly calls out the unnecessary chaos that we've been seeing in Minneapolis. Minnesota's ICE situation has once again devolved into chaos. Enraged demonstrators took to the streets shortly after Preti's death, prompting Tim Walz to deploy his National Guard. He did so for good reason. And by the way, there are some videos that I came across on social media showing National Guard, providing some of the demonstrators with donuts, and those are public servants. When Americans interact with the government, they want to know that the individuals who signed up to be public servants are actually working as public servants, not individuals looking to find any little excuse to execute them. Now, he also writes that regardless of your views on ICE or Donald Trump, it's clear that what's occurring in Minneapolis is completely out of control. Leaders in Washington and Minneapolis must do everything possible to lower the temperature. What took place in Minneapolis was a terrible story, and it never should have happened. So he later gets into the arguments that are being made by a lot of people on the right regarding Preti's possession of a legal firearm. Before we get to that, though, Cenk, you had a reaction to the headline about how this is perfect for America's ruling class. Why do you agree with that?
Yeah, honestly, it's literally the same exact thing I said on Piers Morgan this morning. They wrote the newsletter before, but I hadn't read it. So it's an interesting, again, populist left, populist right going, guys, remember, they're gonna try to split us up. And because the only thing that could take on the establishment is a united left and right. And are your wages any higher? Are drug prices any lower? Housing prices any lower? And so the reality is they want to create division, hatred among us, because there's a lot of energy on the right and the left. If they use it to address the people who actually rig the system that's above you, they could actually win. But if they use the energy to attack each other, then that energy is wasted, and the powerful absolutely love it. And when you see this kind of American on American violence and chaos in the streets, the powerful are thinking, oh, exactly what we wanted. So don't feed into that.
Exactly. This is the playbook, folks, and it's as old as time itself. The ruling class, the establishment, whatever you want to call them, they thrive on division. They want us fighting each other, pointing fingers at our neighbors, yelling about trivial differences, while they quietly consolidate power and rig the system against all of us. Think about it. Are your wages higher? Are your drug prices lower? Is your housing more affordable? No. That's because while we're busy squabbling over who gets to use what bathroom or which side of the aisle is more evil, the real enemies are laughing all the way to the bank, making sure their pockets are lined and their power is unchallenged. They don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. They just care that you're distracted. It's like a magician trick. Look over here at the shiny object, while I do all the real work over here. Don't fall for it. Our energy, our righteous anger should be directed upwards at the people actually pulling the strings, not sideways at our fellow Americans who are just as fed up as we are. We need to really find out who the real enemies truly are.
Now, Trump has already made some changes in Minnesota, likely because he realizes that what's been happening on the streets of Minneapolis in particular has hurt public perception of his administration. So he has pulled Greg Bovino and some Border Patrol agents out of Minnesota. And we'll see if that does, in fact, lower the temperature. But later in this newsletter, Tucker Carlson addresses the conservatives who are abandoning their pro-Second Amendment principles in the wake of Alex Preti's murder. Today he wrote that reactions have been so factional that supposedly pro-Second Amendment conservatives are suddenly saying that practicing concealed carry is some sort of crime. That's almost as crazy as exploiting Charlie Kirk's assassination to push hate speech laws. Republicans back the deportation forces and Democrats side with Preti, even if doing so means abandoning the principles they purportedly hold near and dear. They mold their views based on tribalism, not values. But look, in the case of Preti, I don't support Preti because he was a Democrat. I support Preti because he didn't do anything wrong. At least from everything we've seen, he didn't do anything specifically to justify his public execution by federal agents in broad daylight. And I think providing cover for that or defending that pulls this country in a very dark and dangerous place that we will all suffer from. All ordinary people will suffer from. If we greenlight a police state that allows masked federal agents to gun Americans down willy-nilly with no consequences, I don't know, I personally don't want to live in that country. That's a scary country to live in. Any thoughts, Cenk?
Yeah, just that, it's a super interesting newsletter. I read it, very conservative, but still principled and pro-American. And so it's worth reading in that sense. And you see these surprises all the time. And why is it a surprise? It's not a surprise given Tucker Carlson's actual positions. If you're in favor of the Second Amendment, this should not be surprising at all. That is the correct right-wing position, right? But it's surprising only because in the old days, you had Fox News and MSNBC, and they had to almost like by law, at least the law and the rules and regulations passed by their executives, they had to fight and they had to disagree on every single issue. But now we have a situation where, as you're seeing here, is, even if they think, I'm not in favor of Preti or whatever it might be, they're like, yeah, but you do have a right to bring a gun. We've been saying that for 20, 50 years on the right. And you do have a right to protest the government, and they can't take away your First Amendment or your Second Amendment rights. That is a principled conservative position that happens to agree with, by the way, on the Second Amendment here, we're kind of agreeing with them. On almost every other issue, they have come in our direction, anti-war, anti-Israel, etc. So in this case, I'm not a big fan of the Second Amendment, but if we're applying the Second Amendment, then certainly you have a right to carry that weapon around, right?
Right.
And that is certainly the right-wing position. I want to read you the last portion of Tucker Carlson's newsletter this morning. They said the corrupt establishment's best chance of survival is if Americans stop directing their rage at them and instead turn on each other, just like they're doing in the wake of Preti's death. Don't forget, Noble Mobile saving you a ton of money. So a lot of people are signing up now and beginning to realize Americans must remember who the real enemy is. Even if Average Joe and Average Dave vehemently disagree about ICE, they're both victims of Washington's obsession with ignoring the people and serving the powerful.
Boom. That's the money shot right there. Always look up. It's not about left versus right. It's about the powerful versus the powerless. This isn't some conspiracy theory. It's the cold, hard reality of how Washington operates. They don't give a damn about your party affiliation when they're deciding who gets rich and who gets left behind. They want us to believe that our differences are completely different, that our fellow Americans are the enemy. But what Tucker and the host are saying is profound. The real enemy isn't the guy who disagrees with you on ICE. It's the system that ignores both of you while serving the elite. It's the lobbyists, the career politicians, the unelected bureaucrats who are truly rigging the game. If we can reunite, if we can actually form an alliance of common sense across the political spectrum to demand accountability from the top, that's when real change happens. That's when we take our country back. We have more in common as ordinary Americans than we do with the ruling class who views us as all pawns. It's time to stop letting them divide and conquer and unite as one.
Want to create change? That's great. We do too. Just don't view your fellow American as the obstacle. Always look up. It's impossible to disagree with that. I mean, look at that. If we wind up having an actual alliance here and take on the establishment, sorry, but that'll be the greatest thing that ever happened, right? And I'm not saying it's already happened. There's a long road to go, right? But these are good beginnings, and I don't think it's a trick, guys. I think they genuinely mean it, and so I'm very happy to take yes for an answer on looking up, look up, look up, look up. That's where the power is. That's how you rig the rules. People without wealth or power have no ability to rig the rules. The rules have been rigged against all of us, and they don't give a damn if you're a Republican or a Democrat on the right or the left. They only care whether you have power or you don't.
So, what's the takeaway here, patriots? Stop fighting each other. Start looking up. The powerful want us divided and weak. But if we stand united against the actual establishment that's screwing us all over, there's nothing, absolutely nothing we can't achieve. So do me a favor, share this video, hit that like button, and let us know in the comments, who do you really think the enemy is? Keep this conversation going and fight for a truly free America.